And thank you for inviting me to read.
Read poems.
Okay, shut up and read. Okay. As some of you may know, and some of you may be even sick of hearing about, my daughter, Rachel, is getting married in May, and I'm very happy about this. And this poem came about over the last few months with me thinking about the wonder of how we are always connected, and yet we're separate. The title is Birthing and Beyond, Daughters. The way something inside, not the baby, but the mother, says now, knows when it's time to push, time for the laboring, the throes, the crowning to commence, the bearing down, the rush, the delivering. In my class at the college, if your phone rings, you have to buy us a pizza. So, somebody owes pizza to the whole crowd. Sorry. Okay, amniotic river of verdicts and blood and water. Baby skin touches the dryness of air for the first time. No longer amphibian, oceanic, touching the terror of not being contained, leaving held as home. The miniature queen, the tiny king, perfect humans in microcosm. What once was one, now split into the two, cord pulsing. Their shared blood, blue on the inside, still courses between them. Their blood will always be shared, though carried about in separate vessels. Lives that appear disparate to outside eyes, that invisible cord pulsing still, dispersing their portions of a common bloodstream. There's a woman out in the world, sprung from my loins, adult, fully formed. She walks to work on 57th Street in New York, flies over Pittsburgh, swims in the Mediterranean Sea, separate from me, free, yet still my own, I hers. My daughter is not only my daughter, she is also my mother, and I'm also her daughter. She is my mother's mother too, and her mother's daughter, as she will also be her own daughter's mother plus daughter, the daughter of all her own daughter's daughters, now and to come. Now, since I was reading that one, I pulled out an old poem I wrote under the tutelage of Peter Murphy about 15 years ago. And anyone who's seen my work knows my poetry is not usually marked by nostalgia, thanks to my many good teachers over the years. So this one is a little bit on the sappy side for me. But since I was talking about my daughter, I had to go with it. By the way, she happens to be 5'10" and was a very tall teenager, which you'll see in the poem. In fact, I remember when she was in 7th grade, it hit her. She came home from school one day and she said, "Mom, I stood up in science class today and I noticed I'm taller than my teacher." And that happened in English. And that happened in math. So she was taller than all of her teachers by then. It's called On the Threshold. My daughter, 14, in clunky heels, leans down to kiss me goodbye in the doorway. And suddenly I remember when she was little, and I'd put a kiss in each of her palms and say if she rubbed her hands together, they'd turn into a million. And if she got lonely in preschool, she could put her hand to her cheek and feel me with her. So tonight, I risk saying to my teenager, could I maybe put kisses in your hands? She gives me the 3-syllable, "Mom," and the crystal blue eyes roll up. But she smiles and gives me her hands that are my hands, in one size smaller. I think maybe I should say that to her again. That was 15 years ago. And let me see. In the just past dusk sky, the moon's perched on the edge of the bay, money round. On the water's surface, it becomes a column, or a ripply column, a candle, a staircase to climb across the city, a gamble on water, a heartache, a misleading, brilliant bridge of light. And I'll end with this little fable that I wrote With whose guidance? Okay, years ago in a workshop. And I think I wrote it because of the expression, she wears her heart on her sleeve. That's always kind of been me, and so the poem kind of addresses that. The gift it refers to is actually many things, and after I wrote it, over time I noticed even more gifts it's referring to. So it's referring to kind of the gifts of the heart, like my daughter, faith, art, and poems, and you guys, all of it. It's called Increments of Grace. She had a very tiny heart. She didn't ask for it. It just came that way, her inheritance from the joining of her tiny-hearted parents. But one day it seemed to hum. And when she began to dance, it was definitely breathing. Imagine her surprise the day she woke and found it on the outside of her body. The doctors were alarmed and said, "We must operate. It will never survive the elements. Was it made to withstand the wind and rain?" But she said no. It wanted to see the world for itself. In truth, it had begun to speak to her. At first, she tried to ignore it, but it grew louder, until the day the doorbell rang, and she found the tiny package, the glittery paper, the bow, the tag that said, "For a girl's heart." It was then she noticed the little opening, the mouth. It was just the right size, and the gift went straight in. "Yum," said her heart.